dear viewers. Welcome to yet another episode of Decent Conversations, where we are all about having lives at work. And I'm your girl, Tabitha Moy. Today, our topic of conversation is on sexual harassment. And together with me is a panel that is well knowledgeable in this area, and they'll be helping us elaborate and understand what sexual harassment really means. I would wish for them to introduce themselves, starting with my farthest left.
Thank you so much, and I'm glad to be here. My name is Wanjiru Mbogwa. I'm a gender and development practitioner, and I'm currently working on developing an app in partnership with Johns Hopkins University, a safety tool for women and girls on matters gender-based violence and sexual harassment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello viewers. I am Imelda Precious. I'm a gender consultant and a rights activist. I work with women, girls and youth in the space of countering violence extremism, especially when it comes to sexual harassment.
Thank you. And we have Salome Njeri, who is our sign language interpreter. So let's go to the conversation. Sexual harassment. We've had this everywhere in the news, on social media. People are complaining sexual harassment, but there's still a gap that people don't really understand what amounts to sexual harassment. So could you elaborate on the basic definition of what is sexual harassment? We'll start with you, Wanjiru.
For me, when it comes to sexual harassment, it has to do with unwelcome and unwanted advances that are sexual in nature, and that varies in terms of degree, because it depends on the kind of violence that is being meted on this person. You can find it in the workplace. So when there's that aspect of it being unwarranted and unwelcome, then it is sexual harassment, and it cuts across both. It affects both men and women. So for me, the key words is being unwanted and unwelcome. So that means it's definitely not consented.
Thank you. Probably Imelda, you can add something.
Oh yeah, just to add on what she has said, sexual harassment is something that when it happens you feel uncomfortable, and I'd like to define sexual harassment as per our Employment Act of Kenya, and it's there in our Employment Act. So as that by the Employment Act of Kenya, we're being told that sexual harassment is unwelcome sexual behavior which could be expected to make a person feel offended, humiliated, or even intimidated. So like our constitution and even the Labor Act recognizes that sexual harassment is something that happens in our public space or even in our workplaces. And it has a law and policy that regulates against sexual harassment in the workplace. Anytime you feel humiliated, embarrassed, know that you have been sexually harassed, and especially when it is an unwelcome reaction.
Okay, I'd like to pick on that because you've already said it's unwelcome, it is of sexual nature, it's unconsented, but now probably to just fully understand what that means, what acts or actions amount to sexual harassment, because there are different kinds of sexual advances or sexual communication. So what acts, especially when we look at the workplace, as you've mentioned, you used the Employment Act. So if it's in the workplace, what acts amount to sexual harassment? If it's in school, because we are having these cases in school, what acts amount to sexual harassment? If it's in the public space, what acts amount to sexual harassment?
Well, sexual harassment can be verbal. Like someone can just tell you words, and sometimes they're just words that are being said innocently without one realizing that it's sexual harassment. For example, someone telling you, oh, you have a nice behind, such like stuff amounts to being called sexual harassment. Or even someone just coming and touching you in an appropriate way. And when you're talking of an inappropriate way, it can happen innocently. Like maybe a lady is seated, then a guy wants to show you something on the laptop, and then he comes touching you from behind so that he may show you or demonstrate to you whatever is happening. That one amounts to sexual harassment. Another form of sexual harassment is through mails, like the quotes that people use on their mails. Like we have signatures on our mail, so maybe I can just try, maybe I'm trying to flirt via mail, and sometimes a mail is sent like this. Maybe someone is just flirting with you via the mail, and it's saying, oh, if you do this, it will turn me off. You see, that one it's just kind of a joke, but in real essence, it's sexual harassment, because that is where it begins. When I send you a mail and tell you, hi Tabby, kindly do this, and if you do this, it will turn me off. And then you respond to it. So that is where the sexual harassment begins. Yeah.
Now, even you've mentioned like when somebody's coming to show you something on the computer, and even the salutations that people use on emails. Probably I would want us to talk more about that, especially when it comes to communication. We are in an age where we are calling everyone dear, sweetheart, you know, babe, whether you have any relations or not. So it's like if I say hi dear, it's like I'm greeting someone, you know, without any kind of connections. So how now do we draw the line and say this is sexual harassment when it comes mostly to communication?
So what we should know, when you're using mail, most of the time, when you're using mail, it means that it is something that is official. So there are policies that have been put in place for communications in most organizations, and other organizations do not have these policies yet. There are inappropriate measures or ways of addressing people. And as you know that people are different. When you call me babe, I may start thinking other way around. I might also assume it, maybe this person is a psychopath and has some intention of driving a message which I'm not aware of it. So you know, when immediately you get into a workspace, ensure that you know you are right. What are the policies at that place? What are the appropriate words to be used when addressing people? When you're able to identify these words, then you're able to identify when someone is addressing you in an inappropriate way.
Okay. So I like how you've highlighted, especially in terms of communication, because one of the areas that sexual harassment comes out a lot is in communication. So probably you can elaborate further, Wanjiro, on not only on workplace but in public spaces, because this is where I feel we have a lot of sexual harassment, especially public spaces, mostly in terms of public transport, when we are walking around town, when we are sitting in a park. So like, what are other forms and ways that people are harassed in public spaces?
Okay, in public spaces, like you're saying, we do have a lot of sexual harassment happening, and in this case, it can take the form of catcalling, and this happens a lot when we're using public service vehicles. You'll hear the touts calling you and also trying to maybe describe your body anatomy, and this is harassment, because if it's something that makes me feel uncomfortable, if it's something that really disturbs me, it sure is sexual harassment. And also sexual harassment in public spaces can take subtle forms, such as when you're meeting friends and you realize that there's this tendency, especially with the millennials, of hugging. So if I'm uncomfortable hugging a friend to a friend who I just met, this person may find it okay being an issue, because for me I find it offensive. Why do you have to really impose that hug on me, that I should hug you? I don't know you, or you're just a friend to a friend, or even if we are friends, there are boundaries. If I'm comfortable with just greeting you with a hand, I feel that you should respect that. So if you impose and forcibly hug me, you're sexually harassing me, because you're invading my space. So I feel that is also another form that happens, and this happens a lot with our young people you're meeting, because we are growing in a world that has become so diverse, and there are a lot of things. You can be doing some community programs, you can be out there just meeting in forums. So it is sexual harassment when someone tries to even impose something that you're not comfortable with. Can be hugs, can be even just someone holding you too close, or even wanting to sit too close to you. They are invading your space. So I feel we really cannot really confine what sexual harassment to a number of 1, 2, 3 things. It takes various forms, because even in the public spaces, you can find some people will just maybe stop you and comment to you. Maybe it can be a compliment, but the way they maybe give it, you find yourself, you take offense. and you find yourself being disturbed by it. So it still is sexual harassment, and it can be men, it can be women. You can even find it taking the form of someone maybe just doing something that does not involve physical contact to you, but it is suggestive in a way. This person is trying to send a message to you that they like you. It can be in the way they dress, it can be in some of the things like winking to you. It can even take the form of just someone trying to even draw images or give you visual material that is suggestive in a way. So that is harassment. It disturbs you, you take offense, that person is sexually harassing you.
I like how you've really elaborated on that, especially in the public spaces. It reminds me of something that happened to me recently. I'd really thought I'd seen it all until one day I was just, you see, when you're in the bus stop and you're waiting for matatus to come, and a tout called me babe, and I was like, okay, now this is too much. You know, they call you auntie, sister, mom, madam, but now to the extent of someone calling you babe, it even makes you uncomfortable and wonder, why would someone refer to me that way? And this is a public space. So I think in the public space, it's something that is not really clearly defined, but so many people are finding themselves in uncomfortable situations, but they don't know what to do, and they're not even speaking up about it. So we really lack a lot of awareness when it comes to sexual harassment. And in the same breath of public spaces, probably you could talk about personal space, because harassment also comes with personal space. So how do we define personal space? To what space do we allow someone, you know, to come? At which point am I going to say this is too much, you've sat too close to me? You know, like how do we define that space? Maybe Imelda can add on that.
So when you're talking of personal space, it means that there is this close contact that you have with each other. So wherever you find yourself in a personal space, also check on how you sit with someone, how close you sit, and how this person is doing something. And also when talking of personal space, I'll talk of the jokes we make while together. Like someone just comes up with a joke, size yangu, you see such like words, yeah, umeweza. And you see the umeweza bit that anasema ama tingiza kidogo nione, and that even words that we use as jokes within our personal space, that we can't even use them as example in public, but they do make people feel uncomfortable. So the moment someone starts using words that they're making you feel comfortable, or it's trying to draw near to you in a sitting position that you feel that may lead to something or may make you feel uncomfortable, that is sexual harassment.
Do you have anything to add on personal space?
Yeah, when it comes to personal space, I feel what really matters here is, as a person, have you drawn those boundaries? If I have communicated to you that I'm not comfortable hugging you, that I'm just comfortable extending my hand for a handshake, then I hold that you should respect that. So when it comes to sexual harassment in public spaces, I know in most cases it happens and you're left wondering, what has this person just done? But I feel like at times it's good to communicate your boundaries. Let this person know that this is what you're comfortable with. Anything beyond there, they're invading your space, and that one you just cannot tolerate.
Yeah, it even makes me think of when we are sitting in a matatu and probably you're seated next to the window, and then this person on the other side is struggling to, you know, to close the window, putting their hand on top of your chest, and it feels uncomfortable. And maybe I think we need to elaborate on there's need for personal space and even respect for personal space, because at times people don't know that that is sexual harassment. The moment you're putting your hand across, it comes also with the issue of etiquette. So probably because you talked about communication, salutation, so where do we bring etiquette so as to bring in, like how do we bring etiquette in terms of sexual harassment?
Before I focus on etiquette, I also like to talk about something on personal space, and this, when it comes to talking about people's private parts and the likes. So like someone will ask you, unavanga bra size gani? You see, what's the size of, you see, those are also like intruding someone's personal space. And so when I go to etiquette, I'll still focus on boundaries. Let us have boundaries. Let the person know that you are uncomfortable about such and such a thing, and it does not only affect you, it is not something that only affects you, but also the secondary person. The secondary person, now we talk of the third party. If sexual harassment is occurring next to you, it also affects you in another way because it will make you feel uncomfortable. So let's learn to define our boundaries, not only to ourselves, but also to those people that are around us.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to add something on that, and it's from experience. I remember there's this time I had boarded a matatu, and it's a matatu that drives my route home. So this person, it was at night, kind of tried to doze off leaning towards me. I found it so offensive, and I had to keep nudging him to wake up. But then when I realized I'm nudging this person like 3 times, and it should be a ride that should take around 20 minutes, I felt that this person had a motive. So when one of the people that was in the matatu alighted, I shifted my seat. At that time, I was uncomfortable because I felt, should I just like really confront this person and tell the person to really man up, and you know, that time you're agitated because you're wondering, what are you even doing? Like, what is this person trying to do? So I remember I just saw it as an opportunity to shift my seat, but then I'm assuming, what if I was on a long distance ride? That person would have disturbed my entire trip. And then it happens that a friend of mine, a colleague, happens to know this person. So there is a time we were walking with her, then we meet this person. She said hi to him, and I reluctantly decided I'm not going to even extend my hand to shake this person's hand. And he took offense. I think maybe he didn't remember the episode or something, but I just didn't say hi. And so when they had maybe just talked for a few minutes and he left, I turned to my friend and I told her, you know what happened with this particular person? I even marked his face, and it was on a vehicle at night. You can imagine how offended I was. So this particular friend of mine told me that there's a time they were there bus at the matatu stage with the mother, and this guy, he's a friend from campus, they studied together. This guy just spotted her and came and lifted her in the air. So her mother was left wondering, where has this person just come from, and who the hell is he to just come and lift you up, that he's so excited about seeing you. So what I got from my conversation with her is that this guy just has a tendency of invading into women's spaces. So because that is what she actually told me, even from campus, she was just that kind of guy who would be all touchy on ladies. And so from that, I feel for her, she should have established boundaries with this person, because you can imagine you're with your mom at the bus stop, and someone out of nowhere just comes and lifts you up, and the mom doesn't know who this is even. So I feel when it comes to public spaces and the issue of invading one's personal space, it really is pegged on communication. And I feel when you're offended, please just ensure that you communicate. Let that person know if when it happens that you have not really liked what that person has done, and you cannot tolerate it another time. I feel communication is key.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We'll take a short break, then we'll be right back. Welcome back. If you just join us, this is Decent Conversations, and we are talking about sexual harassment. So before we went on break, Imelda, you wanted to add on something.
Yeah, I wanted to add on something on both our own private space and the public space when it comes to sexual harassment. And something that is so common is staring. There's a way someone can stare at you, like look at you, and you can actually tell that this kind of looking at you or staring can lead to sexual harassment or any other predetermined predetermined course. So how do you do this? You just distract the person and maybe say, hi, why are you looking at me like that? You see, always learn to talk and to defend yourself, especially when you realize that someone is staring at you in a manner that is not welcoming.
Okay. Maybe I want you also to comment on how does harassment affect men and women differently? Because we know most of the time women are the victims of sexual harassment, unfortunately. Men are also harassed, but not as much as women. So how is the difference in terms of effects? Briefly. We start with you, Wanjiru.
Yes, I have to acknowledge that it's a growing trend in Kenya, that we are having a lot of men now coming out and speaking about sexual harassment, much as the numbers don't really reflect what is the reality, because like, you know, we have been brought up in a society that really is keen on one being a man and manning up. So when it comes to sexual harassment regarding men, most of the men actually do prefer to stay silent. And that is one thing. And another thing is most of the men don't really know what they can term as sexual harassment. Because, for instance, a man can be having a lady boss who maybe comes up to him and is really like, you know, the way someone invades your space, you're sitting, like she had said, you're sitting and working, and this person is all over you, trying even to show you something on the laptop, and this person is maybe being suggestive in their mode of dressing. It could be a cleavage, it could be something skimpy. So most men really don't know how to draw the line between what sexual harassment is regarding men. So most times you realize men tend to be silent. It does affect them, and it really is out there. It's happening in public places. It's happening in also workplaces. And you know, we can have also men having sexually harassing other men. We can have just the same way we have women harassing other women. And it can also be women harassing men. But one thing that is really clear is that most men prefer to stay silent, because our society has quelled them and shown them that sometimes you just have to be silent on these things because you are a man. How do you even like start saying that this woman came to me and was doing this and this? I mean, and you find that in case a man speaks out and says this and this happened, they'll be tainted by the other men as being cowards. I mean, you should have taken the opportunity. It's common out there. Mbona unajua wanasema amejipa amejileta. So why should you say no? So you find that because of such situations, men do get affected by sexual harassment, and they may put up with it for some reasons. It can be in the workplace, and you find that because this person is in fear of losing their job, because when we talked about sexual harassment, when you talk about it, it involves some kind of intimidation. This person can just tell you, if you're not going to play by my rules, if you're not going to give in to what I'm saying, then you forget your job. So some will tolerate some of these acts, and they'll just maybe assume they're just small things. They're not really that. They don't really matter. Maybe that person just had the boss come and pat their shoulders, and so they feel, okay, if this is the cost I have to pay to keep my job, then it's okay as long as it's not getting to a certain level. But you don't know when it gets to that level.
You don't know when it's going to escalate and become something else. Okay. Sorry. So probably, Imelda, you can just shed more light on, because most of the time, the person in the workplace situation, the person who is harassing you, often they are people in power. They are people who have influence, and so you're kind of scared of your job. You're kind of scared what will happen if I speak out. So in instances when you're harassed, what would you recommend for someone to do?
When someone is harassed, first I recommend, do the person who is harassing you knows that that is actually harassment? Which step have you taken to talk to this person? Remember, anytime you're being harassed, and you can't just go and report it was harassment unless there is evidence. But again, I can't report it is harassment if I have approached you and told you, hey, you did this 1, 2, 3, and to me, I term it as harassment, what are you saying? This person will either try to defend themselves or support what they have done. And from there, you can easily get your evidence and always be able to report. And remember that sexual harassment doesn't favor anyone, whether you are in a higher position or not. You can always report cases of sexual violence so long as you have the evidence. And the evidence, you get it by just doing what I've said. Approach the person. And if the evidence is such clear, you don't always have to approach the person. You can also have witnesses. But in cases where you don't have witnesses, approach this person. If you have text messages, emails, and WhatsApp, use them to file a suit against such a person.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a conversation we cannot fully exhaust because sexual harassment takes many forms. But what we need to really, as you've all mentioned, to really put in mind is it has to be unwelcomed and we have to speak out about it. So for the issue of personal space, it's good that we communicate. Like, this is my limit, I cannot allow it to go this far. And make it known to the person who is harassing you that actually whatever you're doing is making me uncomfortable. Thank you so much for your contribution. But before we conclude, I will wish you to give like final remarks on the topic, what you would like to advise our viewers in terms of the topic on sexual harassment.
Just to conclude, I love to use the law, and I've been looking at my constitution, and I love to bring into your attention what the Kenyan law considers sexual violence, violence or harassment, so that in any case you find yourself in such a scenario, you can use the law to defend yourself. So as per the law or the Employer Act of Kenya, this was in 2007, so sexual is directly or indirectly request the employee for sexual intercourse. If you have been requested by your employer or you are an employee and you have been requested for a sexual intercourse contact of any form, this is sexual harassment. If you are receiving threats in treatment or in place of employment just because of sexual favors, that is sexual harassment. And then even if you are being threatened about you losing a job or you having some consequences, that is also sexual violence. Use of language, whether it is written, whether it is spoken, or of any sexual nature, the Constitution considers that as sexual violence. And then you have the visual material, which we have mentioned here. And then there are also physical behavior of a sexual nature, which directly or indirectly affect us. And when you talk of indirectly, we talk of the third parties. When you talk of directly, we talk of things that affect us personally. So I'll leave you with that so that you can know where you fall in the law.
I'd like to reiterate to something she mentioned about reporting. We have a hotline, the gender-based violence hotline. That's 1190. It's a toll-free hotline. There's also 1195 for counseling. And also when it comes to workplace, it's really encouraged that you speak to the HR. So this is involving a third party, because if the person who's above you could be your project manager, could be your supervisor, could be your boss, the one who is harassing you, you need to report to the HR. And regarding this, the Constitution requires every organization or company that has 20 plus workers to have a sexual harassment policy. That is there in the Constitution. So I also feel that as our viewers, you need to find out, does your company, does your organization have a sexual harassment policy? What are the provisions? Because at times we suffer because of ignorance. This is something that is in the Constitution. So what is it there? Is it in place? And if it is not there, you should lobby with your fellow workers for it to be there in place, because this policy is what defines what is sexual harassment as per that organization or company. It is what really stipulates what can be done in the event that sexual harassment occurs. What is the reporting mechanism? Because when it comes to harassment in workplaces, most people are at a loss on what to do, because you don't know who to approach, because at times you'll have the fear that your name will be tainted, that you'll even maybe be dismissed. You can even lose your job on such grounds. So what does your company or your organization have to say regarding sexual harassment? So I feel like this is something that you need to take it upon yourself as a man, as a woman, we have said it cuts across. Ensure that you know what is there to protect you from sexual harassment. It really is important, and when it happens, report. It can be to the HR person, and ensure that you follow through, that the disciplinary action, the necessary disciplinary action is taken against the person. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also want to say we should avoid also victimizing the victim because at times when people talk about sexual harassment and they report it, they are victimized. At times you're told, probably this happened to you because of the way you were behaving. This happened to you because of the way you were dressing. So if at all we want to help victims of sexual harassment or any form of sexual violence, it's quite important that we stop victimizing and even be our brother's keeper. If I see violence or harassment happening wherever I am, could it be in public space or at home, it could be anywhere, in the workplace, speak up, because the person being harassed might not be able to speak up, but if you come in and we make it a society that supports everyone, we could actually reduce these cases of sexual harassment. Because I think they are actually the hardest cases, because how can I prove you touched me inappropriately? So it's those cases of I said versus he said, or I did versus he did, and they are quite difficult. So thank you so much for making time to be here today and for contributing to this conversation. Thank you, Wanjiro. Thank you, Imelda. Thank you, Salome. This has been Decent Conversations, where we are all about having lives at work, and we've been talking about sexual harassment. I'm your girl, Tabitha. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
My name is Arnold Gekonge, and I'm a youth advocate for adolescent and youth reproductive health. I think that teenage pregnancies have been on the rise in particular counties of Kenya. And right now we have 1 in 5 girls who have already delivered or are pregnant with their first child. It is not an impressive statistic. I think that we need to adopt age-appropriate human sexuality education, both at home, in school, in church, everywhere where young people are, so that they can be able to behave responsibly as young adults. That way we'll be able to reduce the amount of teenage pregnancies that we have reported.
Where it's alarming in the first place, and I believe it's about time we start creating awareness, because most of these young people who are being affected are ending up, some people are in schools, they end up dropping from school. Some are still young people with so much dreams, those dreams end up getting killed. You know, there are so many factors that contribute to that. So I feel it's about time we create awareness, and we, whatever plans we can incorporate to reduce it, let's go ahead and embrace these plans.
So my name is Ismail Otieno. My take on general in 21st century is I don't think there is a, let's say we are supposed to have roles as, let's say, gender, but I think we are equal, but the difference is our gender, let's say. But roles, I think we can do everything like normal. Like we can do, a boy can do what a girl can do, and a girl can do what a boy can do. So I don't think there is we're supposed to have that role, like that gender role thing going in 21st century. I think we are all equal.
My name is Annabelle, and my take on gender roles in the 21st century is that gender roles have become dynamic because of the environment and also because of the place that you've come from. For example, if you're, let's say, in Kenya, the way you define roles in Kenya is not the way you can define roles in America.
My name is Monique Vinki. I feel that there's a need for us to break from some barriers that were, like for example, in the kitchen, it's only a woman who can enter. If you are comfortable as a man to get in the kitchen, go ahead and cook some meal. Just go ahead and cook a meal. Once in a while, it's good. You pop in there, cook your woman some good meal, you know. Yes.
My name is Steve Ayeta. What do I think about gender roles? I think right now gender roles are a bit even compared to how it was before. At least right now, ladies are coming up, women are coming up in better positions. Right now, in, for example, Kenya, we have women representatives. So my input would be that at least we are not badly off. We haven't reached where we're supposed to, but we're not badly off.
Hello, my name is Bilha. I don't have any idea of what human sexuality education is, but I would prefer the government to create an awareness program for people such as I to know, because knowledge is power. Thank you.
My name is Steve Ayeta, and my take on comprehensive sexual education is that first and foremost it's a good thing. I really feel that the adolescents or teenagers or people in school should be introduced as a curriculum, so that at least the students know what they're getting themselves into, so that when they actually get into the outside world, they're not as green as such. So yeah, that's my opinion.
My name is Judith Mongeri. I'm a development communications practitioner. My take on sexual harassment is one of the most demeaning factors, I could say, in terms of, when you get things that you really don't welcome or were not invited to you, somehow they tend to lower your self-esteem. So the moment it happens, one tends to start thinking like, did I deserve that? So technically or practically it lowers someone's self-esteem. Personally, I've been harassed in Nairobi, plus other more places, but I will focus more on one occasion that I was walking in the streets and I'm going to a bus, and the conductor just holds my body, like he's helping me to get into a mat, and that was really, I felt so bad and I had to make a U-turn. It's another harassment, but yes, I slapped the guy.
My name is Esther Nema, and my take on sexual harassment is it's despicable to, I think it takes away the power out of people, or it's taking advantage of people just because they're female or they're male, or taking advantage of the fact that they're different from you and just using that to harass them. I think it's really despicable. I feel a lot of women have gone through it, even I personally, whereby you've either gone for an interview or you've gone to negotiate a deal, and the person does not see you as an equal. They actually believe that they should take advantage of you just because you're of the opposite gender. So I think it's quite a challenge. So sometimes even we wonder, when I'm going to negotiate, did I get the deal just because of my sexuality, or did I get the deal because I actually deserved it? And then later you see the same person is sending you good morning messages, good night, good lunch, all that. So you wonder, what exactly is this? Yeah.
Hi, my name is James Ogutu. Sexual harassment is a very bad thing to happen to anyone, because it diminishes their personality and even their, their personality in a way. So have I ever been sexually harassed? A lot of times. As men in this city of Nairobi, we are being harassed every time. Ladies wear thick belts, calling it skirts, and for us visually we are being harassed because there's a way, if you look at a woman who is dressed in an inappropriate way, in a way you are being harassed. Yes, so I can say we have been harassed a lot. And also along the streets where people are selling stuff, but then near those two houses, there are ladies standing there. They just touch your hands, try to pull you as if every other person is their customer. That is sexual harassment. Now, what is my take on it? I will say it is a very bad thing, be it happening to ladies or to gents. It is something that should not be happening. For men, please do not harass ladies. If you cannot contain your passion and your excitements, please get a girl, marry, and settle. Then you can, stop doing it to others. Thank you so much.
My name is Steve Ayeta, and my take on sexual harassment would be, I would say it is biased, considering that if you actually harass a lady in town, you'll definitely receive a lot of reactions from the people. But if the same lady harasses a man, it's a bit different. And for me, I think when it comes to harassment, is mostly based on the lady's perspective and like the guy's perspective. So that's my take.
My name is Joel Ochieng. I'm a student. yet to join campus next month. This is what I'll say. This is my take on sexual harassment. First of all, it all boils down to our mentality and our attitude as a people. One thing, you might tell one girl you're smart or you're beautiful, and their take will be very different depending on their attitude. One will take it positively, the other will take it like as if maybe you are, to some extent, I don't know, but they will all take it differently. So that is one thing. I think we have to change our attitude. The second thing, again, is just the materials we feed our mind with, like pornographic materials, like those kind of stuff really pollutes our mind. And when you see, like if you're a man, you see a lady, you see beyond the cloth or something, and that really triggers you to do something which is really wrong. For the women, you see beyond the cloth, and truth be told, men are like also harassed to some extent, although it's not to the level in which women are harassed. Yeah.
My name is Arnold Gekonge, and I feel that sexual harassment is a topic that everyone should be conversant with and be able to deal with it when they face it. For instance, if you are in a public place and someone touches you inappropriately, you should be able to face them and speak out against it, because it is something that no one should be going through. And all people, male and female, should be taught to behave appropriately or responsibly, not to touch other people inappropriately or harass people without their consent, especially.
Thank you so much. My name is Calvin Sotiena. I'm founder of FSPN Africa. So my take on men and mental health, I'll say is something that our society is really facing, and we have to, it's high time we come up with strategies on how to curb this problem that is coming up. It is real. Today when you walk in the streets, you realize most men are even talking by themselves. It's not normal. We can't take it to be normal. Most of them say that I'm having a board meeting or something. I don't understand whatever that means. Yeah, so it's not normal for someone to just be talking to themselves loudly. So we need to come up. One of these issues that you're facing, one of the core causes are, I would say, our parents or maybe the society, how we are brought up. As a man, when you're growing up, you're always told that you're made to take things the way they are and never to complain to anyone. So that's a problem. Whenever there's a problem, you should speak out and get to tell people what you're feeling and get it off. So basically, I would say it's a major problem that we have, and we really need to come up with strategies. Another one recommendation I'll give is maybe the men to come up with something. The women are already getting there. We have a lot of empowered women that men are not able to handle. So it's time we come up with strategies for men as well, so that these men can handle these empowered women, and we get that society that you want. So thank you.